They thought they were stopping an ordinary driver on a quiet Georgia road. They had no idea they were standing in front of a woman who had spent a lifetime leading others. The afternoon sun stretched across a peaceful highway outside Atlanta, Georgia, as General Amelia Brooks drove through the familiar streets near her home. There was nothing about the vehicle that attracted attention. There was no military escort, no official symbol, and no visible sign that the calm woman behind the wheel had reached one of the highest levels of leadership in the United States Army. To anyone watching from a distance, she looked like someone simply enjoying a normal afternoon drive. But the most important parts of a person's story are often the parts that cannot be seen. Amelia Brooks had spent more than 30 years serving her country. Her journey was built on discipline, responsibility, and a commitment to helping others succeed. She had carried decisions that affected entire teams, guided younger leaders, and earned the trust of people who depended on her judgment. Yet, after decades of service, Amelia chose a quieter life away from the attention that came with her position. She did not introduce herself by her rank. She did not expect people to treat her differently because of her achievements. She believed that respect should come from character, not recognition. Her neighbors knew her as a thoughtful woman who valued simple conversations and peaceful moments. Many had no idea about the history behind her name. They did not know about the years she spent wearing the uniform, the challenges she overcame, or the leadership responsibilities she carried throughout her career. Amelia preferred it that way because she believed a person's worth should never depend on a title. That belief followed her everywhere, even during the unexpected moment when the lights of a police vehicle appeared behind her. Officer Michael Reynolds approached with the confidence of someone who had spent years serving his community. He believed preparation and experience were essential parts of his responsibility. Every day required attention, awareness, and careful decisions. Those skills had helped him throughout his career, but experience also carried a challenge. Sometimes people became so confident in what they saw that they forgot how much remained hidden. Michael looked at the situation in front of him. He saw a driver on the side of the road. He saw a routine interaction that needed to be handled properly. He did not see the decades of service behind the woman in the vehicle. He did not see the leadership lessons, the sacrifices, or the countless moments that shaped Amelia Brooks into the person she had become. Amelia lowered the window and greeted him calmly. "Good afternoon, officer. How can I help you?" Her voice was respectful and steady. She did not react with frustration. She did not attempt to change the situation by explaining who she was. She simply allowed the conversation to begin. Michael continued with his questions, following the process he believed was necessary. At that moment, neither of them knew that this ordinary roadside encounter was about to reveal a truth far greater than either person expected. Because sometimes the person standing quietly in front of you is carrying a story powerful enough to change everything you thought you understood. Long before the quiet afternoon on the Georgia road, General Amelia Brooks had already learned that the strongest leaders were not always the ones people noticed first. True leadership was often built in moments when nobody was watching, when there was no recognition, no applause, and no reminder of a person's achievements. Amelia understood this because her entire life had been shaped by service without the need for attention. When she first began her military journey, she did not dream about titles or positions. She focused on becoming someone others could trust. She wanted to develop the discipline, patience, and judgment required to support people who depended on her decisions. Over the years, those values guided every step of her career. Amelia discovered that leadership was not about standing above others. It was about standing beside them. It meant listening before speaking, understanding before deciding, and accepting responsibility when situations became difficult. These lessons followed her through every assignment and every challenge she faced during her years in the United States Army. Eventually, Amelia earned the rank of general, a position that represented decades of dedication and commitment. But even after reaching that level, she remained the same person she had always been. She never believed a title made someone more valuable than another person. To her, a uniform represented responsibility, not importance. After completing many years of service, Amelia decided to step away from the constant attention that came with military leadership. She chose a quieter life in Georgia, where she could enjoy simple routines and connect with people without the expectations that came with her position. Many people around her knew her as a kind neighbor. They saw someone who enjoyed peaceful mornings, friendly conversations, and ordinary moments. They did not know they were speaking with a woman who had spent decades making important decisions and guiding others through demanding responsibilities. Amelia never corrected their assumptions because she did not need strangers to know her history. She believed that character should speak louder than a title. That belief became especially important during the encounter with Officer Michael Reynolds. As he approached her vehicle, Amelia understood that he only knew what he could see in that moment. She knew how quickly people could form opinions with limited information. Throughout her life, she had witnessed situations where people were judged before their full stories were understood. But she also learned that the best response was not anger or frustration. The best response was patience and consistency. Michael continued asking questions while Amelia calmly provided answers. She could have immediately explained her military background and ended the uncertainty. She could have mentioned her position and changed the entire tone of the conversation. But Amelia chose not to. Her decision was not about hiding anything. It was about allowing the process to happen fairly. She believed that respect should not appear only after someone discovers a person's accomplishments. Respect should exist. From the very beginning, Michael noticed something unusual about her calm attitude. Many people reacted strongly when they felt misunderstood, but Amelia remained composed. She did not attempt to control the situation. She simply allowed the conversation to continue. At that moment, Michael still did not know the remarkable story behind the woman in front of him. But something about her confidence and patience suggested there was much more to discover. Officer Michael Reynolds had handled many situations throughout his career, but this interaction on the Georgia roadside felt different. At first, he believed he understood what was happening. He approached the vehicle, asked his questions, and followed the same careful process he had followed many times before. From his perspective, it was a normal encounter that required attention and professionalism. But as the conversation continued, something about General Amelia Brooks began to challenge his first impression. She remained calm in a way that was difficult to ignore. She did not seem nervous about the situation. She did not try to avoid questions. She simply answered respectfully and allowed the process to continue. Michael had met many different people during his years as an officer. Some were impatient. Some were defensive. Some wanted to immediately explain their side of the story. Amelia was different. She carried herself with a quiet confidence that did not come from trying to prove anything. It came from years of experience, discipline, and responsibility. What Michael did not know was that Amelia had spent much of her life in environments where calm decisions mattered. As a military leader, she had learned that emotions could not replace careful judgment. A strong leader needed to understand the entire situation before reaching a conclusion. That lesson had guided her for decades, and now it shaped the way she handled this moment. While Michael continued reviewing the available information, Amelia watched patiently. She understood that he was only working with what he knew. She understood that people often made decisions based on limited details because they did not have access to the full picture. Throughout her life, she had seen how quickly assumptions could form. A person could be judged by their appearance, their circumstances, or a single moment, while the truth behind them remained unseen. Amelia never allowed those moments to define her. She knew who she was. She knew the years of service, dedication, and leadership that shaped her journey. She did not need to announce those achievements to feel secure in them. Michael looked through the information again and noticed a detail that seemed unusual. Something about the records connected to Amelia did not match the simple situation he believed he was handling. There appeared to be additional information that required further review. He paused and looked back toward the vehicle. For the first time, he wondered if there was a story behind this encounter that he had not yet discovered. Amelia noticed the change in his attention but remained quiet. She knew that revealing her identity immediately would change everything. She knew that mentioning her position could instantly shift the conversation. But she also believed that fairness should not depend on someone's status. A person should not receive respect only after others discover their achievements. Respect should be present before the introduction of any title. The afternoon continued around them. Cars passed along the road, people continued their daily routines, and nobody nearby understood that a simple conversation was becoming a meaningful lesson. Michael was still trying to understand the details in front of him. Amelia was simply waiting for the truth to reveal itself. Then another piece of information appeared on the screen. It was not the complete answer yet, but it was enough to create a question that changed the direction of the entire encounter. Who exactly was the woman standing quietly in front of him? The small detail that appeared in the system changed the way Officer Michael Reynolds viewed the entire encounter. What had seemed like a routine situation was becoming something far more complex. He looked carefully at the information in front of him, trying to understand why the details did not match the simple picture he had created. Earlier, General Amelia Brooks remained calm inside her vehicle, watching quietly as the officer reviewed the information. She could see the moment when curiosity replaced certainty. At the beginning of the interaction, Michael believed he already understood the situation. Now, he was beginning to realize that he only understood one small part of it. Amelia had spent decades learning that every person carried a story that was much larger than the moment others first encountered them. During her years of military service, she had worked with people who faced different challenges, came from different backgrounds, and carried different experiences. She learned that effective leadership required patience because decisions made too quickly often missed important details. That lesson remained with her long after her military career changed direction. Michael continued checking the available records and noticed that additional confirmation was needed. There were signs connected to Amelia's background that suggested a level of service beyond what he expected. He paused for a moment, looking back at the conversation they had already shared. He remembered how calm she had been from the beginning. He remembered how she answered every question without frustration. He remembered that she never attempted to use any personal information to influence the situation. That realization stayed with him. Many people would have immediately explained their accomplishments if they believed it would make things easier. Amelia had chosen a different path. She allowed the process to continue because she believed respect should not depend on discovering someone's importance. Respect should exist before the details become known. Michael returned his attention to the information and began the next step of verification. The process required additional confirmation through official channels, and he prepared to make the necessary contact. He still did not know the full story, but he knew that something about Amelia Brooks was different. There was a confidence in her that did not come from trying to appear important. It came from someone who had spent years carrying responsibility. Amelia understood what was happening, but she remained patient. She knew the truth would eventually become clear. She had never measured her value by how quickly others recognized her achievements. Her identity was not built on a title alone. It was built on decades of choices, service, and dedication. The road around them continued as usual. The afternoon traffic moved along the Georgia highway, and people nearby remained unaware of the meaningful moment taking place. To anyone passing by, it looked like a normal conversation between an officer and a driver. But beneath the surface, something important was changing. Michael was beginning to understand that his first impression had been incomplete. The woman he thought he was simply speaking with carried a history he had never imagined. Then the official verification process moved forward, and another message appeared. It suggested that the person standing before him was connected to a distinguished military record. Michael looked at the information once more, and one question became impossible to ignore. Who exactly was General Amelia Brooks? And what would the answer reveal about everything that had happened so far? The verification process continued as Officer Michael Reynolds stood beside the Georgia road, looking at information that slowly changed his understanding of the encounter. What began as a simple interaction had become a moment of realization. He was no longer only reviewing details about a driver. He was discovering the story of a person whose life contained far more than he had first imagined. General Amelia Brooks remained calm throughout the process. She watched as Michael made the necessary checks, and she understood the importance of allowing the proper steps to take place. She had spent decades in environments where accuracy mattered. In the military, decisions could not be based on assumptions alone. Leaders had to gather information, consider the full situation, and understand what was happening before making conclusions. That same principle guided her now. Michael looked through the available records again. The information connected to Amelia suggested a background that required additional confirmation. It was not the kind of information he expected during a normal roadside interaction. There were indications of significant military service, but the details needed to be verified through the correct channels. He prepared to continue the process while thinking about the conversation they had already shared. He remembered how Amelia never tried to change the situation by explaining who she was. She never mentioned her position. She never suggested that her accomplishments should give her different treatment. Instead, she simply remained patient. That choice made Michael reflect. He had met many people during his years as an officer, and many reacted differently when they felt misunderstood. Some wanted immediate recognition. Some wanted their circumstances to change because of who they were. Amelia did not. She appeared to believe that fairness should exist before anyone knew about her achievements. That idea stayed with him. Michael began to understand that the most important part of the encounter was not discovering that Amelia was a general. The most important part was realizing how easily a person's complete story could remain hidden behind a first impression. Amelia had spent a lifetime serving others, yet she never expected that service to place her above anyone else. Her leadership came from humility, not attention. Her confidence came from experience, not recognition. As Michael moved forward with the verification process, he noticed that the information required a higher level of confirmation. He picked up his phone and prepared to contact the appropriate official channel. The afternoon remained peaceful around them. The sounds of passing vehicles continued along the road, and the rest of the world moved forward without knowing what was happening nearby. But for Michael, the moment had already changed. He was no longer looking at Amelia as just another person involved in a routine encounter. He was beginning to see someone whose life represented decades of commitment and responsibility. Amelia sat quietly, knowing that the truth would eventually be revealed. She had learned throughout her career that patience often allowed facts to speak louder than explanations. She did not need to announce her achievements. She did not need to demand recognition. She only needed the truth to have a chance to appear. Then Michael's phone connected to the official line. He waited for the response, unaware that the next few moments would completely change the way he understood the woman standing in front of him. The official line connected, and Officer Michael Reynolds prepared himself for the confirmation he had been waiting for. Standing beside the quiet Georgia road, he listened carefully as the information was reviewed. The afternoon that had started as a simple interaction was now revealing a much deeper story. Michael remained professional, but inside he felt a growing sense of curiosity. The details he had discovered did not match the assumptions he had made at the beginning. The person sitting in front of him was not simply someone involved in an ordinary roadside conversation. She carried a history of service that extended far beyond what he could see. General Amelia Brooks remained calm as she waited. She did not ask what the call would reveal because she already knew the truth. She did not need the confirmation for herself. She had known who she was long before anyone else recognized it. For Amelia, this moment was not about proving her importance. It was about allowing the process to work as it should. Throughout her military career, she had learned that trust was built through patience, accuracy, and respect. Leaders were not defined by how quickly they demanded recognition. They were defined by how they handled moments when recognition was absent. Michael listened as the official confirmation continued. The information verified Amelia's military background and revealed the significance of her service record. The details confirmed that the woman standing quietly before him was General Amelia Brooks, a respected leader whose career represented decades of commitment and responsibility. For a moment, Michael remained silent. He thought back to the beginning of the interaction. He remembered how quickly he believed he understood the situation. He remembered seeing only what was immediately visible. Now he realized that the picture he created had been incomplete. He had seen a person in a single moment, but he had not seen the lifetime behind that moment. Amelia had spent years guiding others, making difficult decisions, and carrying responsibilities that most people would never know. Yet during this entire encounter, she never used her position to change the situation. She never suggested that her rank should make her different. That was the part that affected Michael the most. The title explained who she was, but her actions had already shown the kind of person she had become. Her patience had revealed more than any introduction could have. Her calm response had shown the discipline of someone who understood true leadership. Michael looked toward Amelia's vehicle with a different perspective. He realized that authority was not only about the power someone held. It was also about the respect they showed when they had every reason to expect recognition. Amelia noticed the change in his attitude but remained composed. She understood that moments like this could become opportunities for learning. She had never believed that people should be defined by their mistakes or their first impressions. What mattered was whether they were willing to reflect and grow. The road remained peaceful around them. The world continued moving without knowing that a quiet conversation had created a powerful lesson about understanding people beyond appearances. Michael ended the call and looked back at Amelia. The situation had changed completely, but the greatest change was not the discovery of her title. The greatest change was realizing how much of a person's story could remain unseen until someone took the time to truly look. The confirmation had changed the atmosphere on the quiet Georgia roadside, but General Amelia Brooks remained exactly the same person she had been from the beginning. She did not suddenly become more important because someone finally recognized her name. She did not speak with a different tone or expect special treatment. For Amelia, a title was never the source of her character. It was only one chapter in a much larger story. Officer Michael Reynolds stood there reflecting on everything that had happened. He thought about the first moments of the encounter and how quickly people could create conclusions from limited information. He realized that he had only seen a small piece of Amelia's life. He had not seen the years of preparation, the dedication, or the countless moments that shaped her into the leader she became. Amelia understood that realization because she had experienced similar moments throughout her career. As a military leader, she often met people who carried responsibilities that were invisible to others. A person could look ordinary while carrying extraordinary experiences. A person could appear quiet while having faced challenges that built incredible strength. That understanding was one of the reasons Amelia valued humility. She believed leadership was not about making others feel smaller. It was about helping others recognize their own potential. Michael looked at Amelia with a new level of respect. What stood out to him was not only her military position. What stood out was how she handled the entire situation. She had the ability to immediately change the conversation by explaining her background, yet she chose patience instead. She allowed the facts to appear naturally. She allowed the process to happen. That choice revealed something deeper about her leadership. True confidence did not need constant proof. True authority did not need to announce itself. Could remain calm even when misunderstood. Amelia finally spoke about the importance of treating every person with dignity. Her words were not angry. They were thoughtful and measured, shaped by years of experience working with people from many different backgrounds. She explained that respect should not be connected to someone's position, appearance, or accomplishments. Respect should be the starting point in every interaction. Michael listened carefully. The lesson was not about embarrassment or blame. It was about awareness. It was about understanding how easily a person's full story could remain hidden when people only focused on the surface. The encounter became a reminder that every person carries something others may never see. Behind every face is a history. Behind every conversation is a journey. Behind every moment is a story waiting to be understood. The sun continued moving across the Georgia sky as the interaction slowly came to an end. What started as a routine moment had become something much more meaningful. Michael walked away with a different perspective, not because Amelia demanded recognition, but because she showed the kind of character that earned it naturally. Amelia continued her day knowing that the most important part of the experience was not that someone discovered her rank. The most important part was that someone discovered the value of looking deeper. She had spent a lifetime serving others, and even in a quiet roadside moment, she continued to lead by example. Sometimes the greatest lessons do not come from powerful speeches or dramatic events. Sometimes they come from a calm person choosing dignity when nobody knows the full story yet. The quiet road in Georgia returned to its normal rhythm after the conversation between General Amelia Brooks and Officer Michael Reynolds came to a close. Cars continued passing, people continued their daily routines, and the world around them moved forward without knowing that a simple encounter had created a meaningful moment of reflection. But for Michael, the experience stayed with him. He continued thinking about how easily a person could be misunderstood when others only saw one small part of their story. Throughout his career, Michael had believed that experience helped him understand people and situations quickly. That belief had guided him through many responsibilities as a police officer. But this moment reminded him that experience was not only about knowing what to look for. It was also about recognizing what might be hidden. General Amelia Brooks had shown him something important without ever trying to teach a lesson. She showed it through her actions, her patience, and her willingness to let truth reveal itself naturally. Amelia did not need to raise her voice to make an impact. She did not need to use her position to change the direction of the conversation. Her strength came from knowing exactly who she was, even when others did not know her story. That confidence came from decades of service and leadership. For Amelia, leadership had always been about responsibility. She remembered the people she had worked with throughout her military career. She remembered younger leaders who needed guidance, teams that needed support, and moments when staying calm was more important than being recognized. Those experiences shaped the way she viewed the world. She believed every person deserved to be approached with fairness because every person carried something valuable that might not be visible at first. Michael thought about that message long after the roadside encounter ended. He realized that the most important discovery was not the fact that Amelia was a general. The deeper lesson was understanding why her identity should not have changed the way she was treated. Her achievements were impressive, but her humanity was what mattered first. The encounter became a reminder that respect should never depend on a person's position, career, or reputation. It should exist because every individual deserves dignity. Amelia continued her day with the same calm attitude she had shown from the beginning. She did not tell the story to seek attention. She did not want recognition for handling a difficult moment with grace. She simply believed that people had opportunities every day to choose understanding over assumption. Michael carried the experience with him because it changed the way he looked at future interactions. He became more aware of the stories people carried beneath the surface. He understood that a person could never be fully defined by one moment, one appearance, or one first impression. The lesson from that afternoon was not about one person being right and another person being wrong. It was about growth, awareness, and the ability to see beyond what was immediately visible. Sometimes the most powerful moments in life happen quietly. They do not come with crowds or attention. They come when one person takes the time to look deeper and discovers the truth that was there all along. Days passed after the quiet encounter on the Georgia roadside, but the lesson from that afternoon continued to remain with everyone who experienced it. For General Amelia Brooks, life returned to its familiar rhythm. She continued enjoying the simple moments she had chosen after decades of service. She spent time with her community, appreciated peaceful mornings, and carried the same humility that had guided her throughout her military career. She never viewed the encounter as a moment where she had proven something to others. To Amelia, the most meaningful victories were not about recognition. They were about creating understanding. Officer Michael Reynolds also carried the memory with him. The experience changed the way he approached his daily responsibilities. He began to look beyond the surface more often and reminded himself that every person he met had a story that might not be visible immediately. He understood that a uniform, a vehicle, a position, or a first impression could never reveal the complete truth about someone. The lesson was simple but powerful. People were more than the moment in which others first encountered them. Michael thought about Amelia's actions more than her title. The fact that she was a general was important, but it was not the reason the encounter affected him. What stayed with him was her patience, her respect, and her ability to remain composed when she could have easily changed the situation by explaining who she was. She showed him that real confidence did not come from demanding recognition. It came from knowing one's own values and allowing actions to speak. Amelia's story also reflected something she had learned throughout her years of leadership. Authority was not measured only by a person's position. True leadership appeared in the way someone treated others, especially during moments when they had every reason to feel misunderstood. She believed that every interaction was an opportunity to choose kindness, fairness, and respect. The encounter between Amelia and Michael became a reminder that hidden stories exist everywhere. A person walking through a grocery store, sitting in traffic, or standing in a quiet conversation could be carrying experiences that others could never imagine. The challenge was not only discovering those stories after the fact. The challenge was learning to treat people with dignity before knowing them. The road where everything happened eventually became just another place in Georgia. There was no sign marking the moment. There was no public celebration. There was only a memory shared by two people who saw the world a little differently afterward. Amelia continued leading by example, just as she had done for decades. Michael continued serving his community with a deeper understanding of the responsibility that came with his role. The most important part of their encounter was not the discovery of a hidden title. It was the discovery of a shared truth. Every person deserves to be seen completely, not partially. Every person deserves a chance to be understood before being judged. Because sometimes the person who appears ordinary is carrying extraordinary experiences, and sometimes the greatest lesson comes from the quiet moments when people choose respect over assumption. A badge can represent authority, and a title can represent achievement, but character is what reveals who someone truly is.